the CAD cam in the surgery part. Yeah, welcome to Thomas. He is not a dentist, but he is very expert about the CAD cam technology, and let him share his knowledge. Yeah, welcome.
ขอบคุณมากครับ I think we should just start. Thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you for the invitation. Also, it's a pleasure as a non-dentist to speak here. I've been asked to join in and also to share my point of view in terms of modern digitized dentistry, and I will try my best to pick you up where you are and to show you what is happening currently in the world and what will also be the future from my point of view. I don't have a disclaimer. I'm very happy that you have disclaimed you are not directly or indirectly supported by anyone. I'm the same actually here. I'm on my own behalf, and I love what I'm doing here. So, long story short, I've been given a pretty broad playground, so I could choose whatever I want to talk about. So I thought at the beginning, if we talk about digital dentistry, my own personal gut feeling is a little bit that it's a very broad and very blurry topic. So it's not very precisely and hard defined. And when I was thinking about it, I said, it's a little bit like this, reminds me of this picture. And I started to think I'm going crazy, but it is actually, in my point of view, metaphorically, like your first teenage love that you had. Everybody's talking about it. Nobody knows how it really works. Everybody is thinking that the other ones are doing it. So they also talk about it themselves and pretend they're also doing it, but it's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of open points which are not clearly defined. Thank you, you agree. So I said, okay, let's take some time and go back a little bit, go back to the basic and look what does it actually mean. What does it mean to digitize? And if you define digitizing, it's very simple. You translate analog information, analog data, into a binary code, which uses bits and bytes. Thus, this information is computable by, therefore the word, computers. We use machines to calculate and to manipulate this information, this data. So, very simple. What, however, is interesting is this. Because if you insert this into Google as a search, as a keyword, you will see the, how is it called here, the use over time. So how many mentions over the time have been used in Google. And you see, nothing has happened until the, let's say, 1940s, 1950s, and then it peaked up. But this is not since yesterday. This is already 80 years old. So digitization is not happening since 2 weeks ago. But I found this very interesting. So let's look what computers looked like. This is the first proper computer invented by a German guy in 1941, Mr. Zuse. This is how it looked like by the time. And as you can imagine, the computer or calculating power was almost non-existing. And 10 years later, 1951, this computer has been given to the US Census Bureau. You see, it's a whole room, basically. And this was the first commercially available computer. And then a few years later, in the 60s, this was approximately 65, 67, the computers became so small that they were actually already used in the Apollo missions, flying people to the moon. So this happened in 20 years, right? From the first computer to sending people to the moon. My point is here, it's nothing new. This has been around for longer than we exist here in this room. At the same time, implantology, dental implantology, has been around for thousands of years. So early attempts are dated back 4,000 years. I don't want to give you a long and brief, dedicated history lessons, but just to show a few examples. So human teeth have been used hundreds of years ago, centuries ago. Seashells have been used. Animal teeth have been used to replace missing teeth. Here you see a remainder of an iron implant. And then by the end of the late 19th century, everything became more scientific and fact-based and research-based, so it got a little bit more professionalized, up to the point where in 65, we probably all know that, the first titanium screw-type implant was placed in a human volunteer by Brennemark. So also dental implantology is nothing new. Which leads to this question, combining those two streams. Why does implantology exist for such a long time? Why does digitization exist for such a long time? And why is it happening only now? What exactly is happening now? And I think this is my personal view from my own experience. The most important factors are the following. You have seen also from your presentation, Ajahn, that the cycle speed is picking up. So if you think back when the first mobile phones came out, up to the next model, it took years. It took a lot of time, right, to evolve to the next step. These cycles have shortened tremendously. So the new update, the most powerful version, the most performant new software release happens much faster. Those cycles have shortened tremendously. At the same time, the performance itself has increased exponentially. So if you think about this small device here, this has got by far more computer power than the ones which have been sent to the moon or have helped people to send to the moon, by far more in such a small device, right? At the same time, what is also happening, and I'm very happy that you have mentioned it with the 3D printing devices, is that the costs go lower. You have economies of scale, the costs go down, everybody can afford it. And if you think about it, my first thought when you explain it is that, meanwhile, every child at home can have his own 3D printer and can print his own toys in his own room. So this really changes the way that we approach the world. If you also think about CBCT scanners, for instance, I think 10 years back, I think it was quite a dream to be able to afford such a machine. But meanwhile, it's nothing that really bothers our mind. Another trend that I personally have seen a lot in prescription medication is personalized healthcare. So main thought is what works well for me might not be suitable for you. We have completely different biological genomes, and personalized healthcare, at least for instance in the oncology area, is something that is really pushed. Also, the expectations, both the patients as well as the doctors, the treating doctors themselves, are not happy with a sufficient standard solution. We want the best. And this also goes hand in hand, by the way, with patients being more and more informed. If you think back, it was not so long time ago, we had to go to the library, we had to collect the book that we wanted to read about, we had to inform ourselves, and now everything is at a fingertip within a few seconds. So patients become more aware and become more like the discussion partner, if you want to say so, with the dentist. I'm very sure that a lot of you, or some of you, have had patients coming to you, approaching you and said, I want to have Invisalign. They did not come to you and said, I want to have my teeth straight. They knew exactly what they wanted to have. So this is happening more and more also. So with this being said, I would like to introduce you to what modern digitized dentistry can provide nowadays. There is for Thai, how can I say, relations, it's quite new on the Thai market. It's a one-piece implant which is custom made. In Europe, however, this has been used for the last 5 years. And we have started introducing it here for more than 1 year now in Thailand. So what is it all about? As I said, it's a hybrid one-piece implant made out of medical grade 4 titanium with surface treatment, which I will explain later, and a connected abutment. So this is one piece. They have been soldered together with a glass fused layer at very high temperatures. So that means there is no screw connection and also no cementation between those two parts. And on top of it resides, at least for the time of osseointegration, floats above the protective crown, which is also provided in the same treatment, in the same treatment package, and which is, first of all, out of occlusion, and it's also not in connection with the implant itself, because we want to avoid all the negative factors that immediate loading brings along. So we, in this case, have an aesthetic function, we have a masticatory function, but we don't load the implant itself. And coming back to, or picking up on what you have said, Ajahn, this is how it all starts. So the DICOM data or the CBCT scan have been mentioned. This is what's happening. We take a CBCT scan after we have determined or decided that the tooth is not salvageable anymore, it has to go. And at the same time, we need a second data set, which is the STL data, which is either gained by an intraoral scan or by digitizing the impression the old-fashioned way. This data is then uploaded, similar to the Invisalign case, is uploaded to the German server, to the German company called Natural Dental Implants, and they start designing the tooth for each individual case. What does that mean? There is no dedicated software behind that. There are highly skilled, highly specialized people sitting behind those models and generating exactly the tooth that your patient will need. I will show a few examples in a second, especially when we are getting close to the sinus area, how we customize the solutions individually for every case, for every patient. So as you see here, we also take the bone crest level into account, we take the neighboring teeth into account, we take the gingival situation into account. Okay, and this is the simulation how it will be seated in the jawbone. So in this case, this was a root identical. It was identical to the patient's anatomy, but customization, of course, and this is the power of this whole system or this whole approach, allows for individualized solution. We take care of each patient's individualized or individual situation that he has. But before we go there, I just wanted to show you a few screenshots, how this looks like when you are uploading your case. It's very intuitive. So you register in what is called the doctor's portal, where you have access to also to a clinical library and to online trainings and so forth. And this is the mask in the end, where you upload your patient's files, your patient's data, insert a few more informations, for example, the tooth number, the birth date, and so forth, patient's name. And 2 days later, after the case has been simulated or has been designed, you receive a message in this portal saying, please approve your case, because it's your treatment, it's your case. However, the surgical planning has been done for you, right? So this is another big advantage from our point of view. Before you do the surgery, you don't have to sit down and plan at which angle you go inside, how deep you go, and so forth. It's done for you. This was a sinus case, by the way, and this will show in a second. This will show how individualization takes place. So the yellow line is the patient's anatomy, root anatomy. And as you see, they are not identical here because we are getting close to the sinus. So we have decided in this case to give some space, stay away from it because we don't need this for primary stability anyway. What is also taken into account is, for example, which bone type the patient has, because for primary stability, those teeth have small extensions. You see them here? Towards mesiodistal directions. So never towards the buccal wall. We would never put pressure on that. And these are the pictures that you receive after 1 or 2 days after the simulation has been done, and you approve them, so then the manufacturing process takes place and start. This is another sinus case, but I like this picture because it's very easily understandable, and it's also a nice one. You see, it's a relatively short route, but the sinus elevation is obsolete. So another big advantage of this treatment, you have one surgical session, one entry, and that is it. You don't have to torture the patient. And the reduced risk also is very obvious. Another example of individual approaches, you see you have slightly diverging routes here. We straightened those. Yeah? We took down the septum bone here because it was quite thin. This was not a case from Thailand, by the way. It was a case from Germany. So the septum bone has been reduced in height because it was quite thin and we didn't need it anyway. And then you see the extensions here. Very small, gentle extensions. So it's a partial volumetric press fit, if you want to say so, for primary stability. We also had an apical extension here to fill that gap. And I would like to show you, or I'm showing this video also because in this case it is a little bit, you will see it in a second. It is not according to standard protocol. Standard protocol says you replace one tooth and shield it with the temporary protective crown, which is attached to one or two adjacent teeth. In this case, the treating doctor wanted to take care of this whole side. And this is how it has been solved. So this is where the replicate came in later on. As much as I remember, the lady had a traditional type implant there, but he wanted to protect the whole side during osseointegration. He also placed a mini implant in the same session. So I just wanted to show you the cover shield. Also in this case, if you're looking at it, in this case it was not needed, but if you're looking at it, we had a case, actually Ajahn Navakamon did such a case, where the buccal wall was quite thin, and we have decided to reduce the size of the implant by 1 millimeter, so we gave the space for placing augmentation material. So I hope you saw the 3-unit crown, so to speak, which is also provided in the same process. Here, very quickly about the computer-aided manufacturing process. So it requires a lot of high-skilled manual labor, but it's nevertheless supported by digitization, if you want to say so. Because you see, here's a 5-axis milling machine. This is the zirconia part for the abutment. This is titanium part. Then the both parts come together in this oven to create those gapless connections. Then it's scanned again. It's X-rayed to see there are no bubbles in the tooth, and it's absolutely gaplessly connected. Then the surface treatment starts taking place. So it's sandblasted, it's acid etched, it's plasma activated to have one of the best starting grounds for osseointegration. Then the packaging, which is also a titanium box because of purity reasons of the surface, is sealed by laser. The name of the patient is engraved here along with a product number, and then it's packed again in a double sterile pouch, ready for use. So it arrives along with the patient, ready for extraction. At your chair side, you open the box and place the implant. I wanted to show you this very briefly because I think it's interesting to see also how the surface looks like. It's a very hydrophilic surface. Another point is there are no packaging fluids here, so it's hermetically sealed in this titanium box. Therefore, you guarantee the highest purity of the surface. We have decided to use titanium, I mean, I'm saying we, but our partners in Germany, to use a titanium box because we didn't want any other molecules to contaminate or to decrease the surface, decrease the quality of the surface. I don't want to talk about the clinical part so much because Ajahn Navakamon will comment a little bit on a short video that I will say. I'm talking more about the technical part. If you have observed, taking out the implant out of the box, it looked quite long. That's due to the reason that there is also a zirconia handle attached to the implant itself. So that means you never touch the implant. You take it out of the box and use this zirconia handle to place the implant into the freshly prepped and extracted socket right after extraction. This is also custom made because as you can imagine, this has to fit to the implant. But you will see in a second during the surgical part, you will see how it looks like. So, how does it help us? What are the benefits of digitizing dental approach? Ajahn, you have a question? Question? Oh, no, okay. The planning phase gains in accuracy, of course. The manufacturing also, because you add precision calculations to the production process. Your surgical planning is reduced in timing. Basically, it's done for you in this case. And the chair time is also reduced, which means also your costs are reduced. But also, of course, the benefits for the patient is there. You come in once, you extract a tooth, and go home in the same session with your new tooth. It's minimally invasive. It's a self-guided insertion. That means I cannot drill too deep. I cannot place it too deep. I cannot place it in the wrong angle. We say, actually, it's guided by nature because the socket gives you the insertion path. Then also, what I think for the prosthodontist is a real pleasure to see it. The aesthetic outcome is much more predictable. You know exactly what will be in the end. So it helps you, it eases up your life. And if you are looking at it from a business perspective, there's also no need to stock any kind of materials, be it implants, be it drilling kits, being gingiva formers. So you just order what you need when you need it, and it will be delivered with you in a few days. So if I maybe go back to my metaphor from the beginning, I think digital dentistry is really like the first teenage love because, how can I say, we cannot escape it anymore. It's there. It's like you would try to reverse driving cars. It doesn't work anymore. So it's everywhere. And you also cannot avoid it. So we are in the midst of doing it already. And if you do it right and if you understand more about it, it really can improve the quality of your life. So I like this metaphor. If there are no further questions for now, I will be around all days to discuss also during lunch break. We can discuss separately outside. But if there are no further questions now, I would like to show you a short 5-minute video. Ajahn will comment a little bit on the clinical and the surgery procedures. And I think this will be around after 2:10.